Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the CommsDay team for bringing us all together here on Gadigal land today. I want to begin with a question, not a rhetorical one, a genuine one. How many of you in the last week have experienced a call drop as you are going into a basement car park, or stepped out of a tunnel and had your phone spend a full 30 seconds trying to remember what century it was in? Everyone in this room probably, and this is no doubt especially frustrating for a room full of people who build communications networks for a living. We have spent 60 years imagining a seamlessly connected future. The Jetsons lived in it. Video calls, flying cars, life in the clouds. They never once lost a signal in a lift. And in 1989, Back to the Future 2 sent Marty McFly to a 2015 bristling with technology, hoverboards, flat screens, voice-activated everything. And in every room of his house, a fax machine. Now, they were right about a remarkable amount of it, really, obviously not in the form of ubiquitous fax machines, of course, but in the form of a smartphone, an expectation of connectivity that is with us everywhere we go. In the 2010s, the smart city era predicted sensors embedded in our cityscape infrastructure, eliminating traffic and keeping our streets clean and safe. In every version of the connected future, connectivity simply existed. None of those visions paused to ask, who builds the infrastructure? Who pays for it? How does it reach the buildings, the tunnels, the indoor environments where people actually are? Not just how do we get connectivity into confined spaces, but how do we build it efficiently and for resilience so that it serves everyone who needs it for the long term? Nobody imagined that the hardest connectivity problem wouldn't be reaching all corners of Australia's vast landscape. It would be reaching the environments we build ourselves. The technology has arrived, and yet here we are in 2026, still apologising for dead spots. That is the challenge I want to discuss today. Last year at this conference, I talked about the need for mission-critical communications networks and how to build and operate them, because that is what we at BAI Communications do best. BAI provides TV and radio services across the whole of Australia. We provide a network as a service for our customers where we design, build, own and operate all of the passive and the active network elements for the TV and radio networks, which reaches well over 99% of the Australian population. We also operate and manage the public safety network for the New South Wales Telco Authority, providing the P25 radio network for police, fire, ambulance and other emergency service organisations. And we implement private and public networks across a range of industries, including mining, energy, ports, rail and retail. Over the last year, we completed the acquisition of the Titan ICT business, which is now fully integrated into BAI. And in February this year, we were appointed to design and deliver the communications networks for Sydney Metro West, which is a really exciting project for us. The new Sydney Metro line will span 24 kilometres of tunnel beneath Sydney, and when it opens in 2032, will transit passengers from Parramatta to the CBD in 20 minutes with fully automated driverless trains. BAI will deliver 3 connectivity solutions under a single program. The dedicated 5G MCX system, which underpins train operations, the P25 public safety network, and the public cellular system for commuter access to MNO networks. Our heritage is in managing mission-critical, always-on communications networks. Our ambition in Australia is to bring that experience to build, own and manage highly resilient networks serving a whole range of industries. Because of the breadth of our involvement across broadcast, critical communications, public telco networks and private networks, We understand why all of these networks are vital to our communities, not just individually, but collectively. So why do we think that indoor and underground is our next challenge? The macro mobile network covers the vast majority of Australians. I'm obviously not going to wade into the debate over the exact figures, but somewhere between 2 and 3 million of our 7.5 million square kilometres total landmass. And we are getting close to solving for the last few million square kilometres with the emergence of LEO satellite solutions. Think about what it took to get there. The capital deployed, the towers built, the spectrum licensed, the regulatory and policy frameworks negotiated, the engineering solved across some of the world's most challenging geography. Many of the people in this room built those networks, and it's a genuine hard-won achievement. But here is a statistic that is often quoted in our industry. Around 80% of mobile traffic originates indoors. We have built one of the world's most impressive outdoor networks, and we have, as an industry and government, underestimated and underinvested in the environments where Australians actually live, work and move through their days. The shopping centres, the stations, the hospitals, the car parks. The macro mobile network was never designed to reach these environments, and it is not designed to serve the places where the next decade of consequential Australian infrastructure will be built. Because Australia is in the middle of an infrastructure build unlike anything in our history. Road and rail tunnels are being bored under Sydney and Melbourne right now. Major venues and corporate precincts across every capital city, particularly Brisbane in advance of the Olympic Games. Mining and energy operations across Australia are constantly expanding. Alongside that new infrastructure build sits a different and less visible task. Much of Australia's existing infrastructure was built without connectivity in mind. And where connectivity has been established, the systems are rarely monitored and managed for performance over time. We know this from experience. Resilience baked in is a fraction of the cost of resilience bolted on after the fact. And this is why the decisions made now will shape these environments for years to come. Here's the thing we've learned from operating in these environments over time. Confined spaces don't have one connectivity problem, they have many. And the way we've been solving them, separately, project by project, layer by layer, is why we have patchy outcomes. The first need is public cellular, the commercial networks that passengers expect on a metro, that 50,000 people expect at a stadium on a Saturday night. My husband trying to call me from the back of a Coles supermarket to see if we need milk. The second need is public safety communications. Our emergency services need reliable, resilient, dedicated communications in exactly the environments where incidents are most likely to be complex. Road tunnels, a packed stadium, underground rail. The third, and this is where the next decade gets genuinely exciting, is private and dedicated operational networks. Mining companies running autonomous vehicles underground, hospitals managing connected medical devices, rail operators running signalling and control systems. The demand for dedicated radio networks and private 5G networks is growing fast and creates an opportunity to drive greater productivity and GDP for our nation. The stakes are not abstract. I can joke about me not getting milk and the disastrous implications for the whole family if there's no morning coffee for me. But as we've heard this morning, the public cellular networks are becoming increasingly important to support a range of applications like autonomous vehicles in the future. And hopefully in the future also the delivery of public safety mobile broadband as well. And for public safety networks, failure is measured in lives. The dispatch that doesn't go out, the coordination that breaks down when it matters most. For mining operations, a loss of comms can halt production and has serious safety implications for workers. For hospitals, for ports, for transport systems, the impact is the same. Connectivity isn't the product for the organisations in these industries. It is not their core business. But it's the foundation everything else is built on. When the foundation fails, everything fails with it. In these environments, getting the communications right is not optional. So let's talk about the money, because this is where the conversation tends to get complicated. Who pays? In greenfield infrastructure, new airports, new hospitals, the source of investment is clear in principle. The party funding the infrastructure build generally takes on the responsibility to ensure the environments it creates are fit for purpose. But the model for how that connectivity is procured is rarely optimised, treating every need as a separate exercise, a separate procurement, a separate design and implementation in a physical environment that has no room, literally or economically, for that approach. And in the process, we have fragmented the accountability for the management, performance and reinvestment to upgrade these networks over time. In brownfield environments, the dynamic is even more challenging. The venue owner points to the carriers point to the venue owner. The public safety agencies have their own budget cycles that may or may not align. The result is inaction or piecemeal solutions that serve everyone poorly. We need to be upfront about what is driving this. In the case of the public cellular networks, the mobile network operators would posit that they are in a challenging capital environment, that years of network investment, spectrum costs and the need to meet regulatory obligations have strained their balance sheets and their return on invested capital. The business case for location-based investments is really difficult for them to validate. How many more dollars will they earn, or how much customer churn will they avoid through investing in coverage in a specific place? They would argue that the lack of investment is a rational response to their circumstances. But in the future, these networks may also be integral to the delivery of a range of other applications. The MNOs have increasingly concluded that passive infrastructure, like the macro networks, towers and rooftops, does not need to be owned by them. It follows then that the in-building and underground network infrastructure is also not strategic for them to own. That creates a gap. Network infrastructure needs someone to own it, invest in it, and take a long-term view of its performance. The problem has a rational answer, what we would call the independent operator model. One infrastructure owner, one implementation, one organisation accountable for the management and performance of the entire communications layer across all users for the life of the network. Costs are lower, outcomes are better, because the decisions are made once by the people who will still be operating the network long after the ribbon on the infrastructure build is cut. Long tenure produces different outcomes and different decisions. When you know you will be running a network in 2036, you make different choices in 2026. You design for performance and scalability from the start. That long-term view is not a sentimental one, it is an operational discipline. And it is what separates infrastructure that performs over decades from infrastructure that's built and left to its own devices. The independent operator role is one that BAI plays in major markets in the US and Europe through our sister company Bolden, including 20-year agreements to deliver and maintain and own communications infrastructure across the New York subway, the London Underground and the City of Rome. So what can we learn from these international models? The US and Europe do have a mature neutral host market for underground and in-building systems. These models offer real lessons, but they do not translate unchanged to Australia. Our market is smaller, our MNOs are fewer, and the economics of a market of 300 million people work differently for a market of 27 million. The model that works for Australia needs to be designed for Australia. We need a deliberate, collaborative design of the economic model that will unlock the investment this challenge requires. Now, obviously, Australia has implemented a large amount of underground and in-building connectivity. My phone is working fine here today in this lovely subterranean room. It's only 4G, but it works. So yes, Australia has solved this problem before. The evidence is in every stadium, every airport terminal, every metro line that has connectivity today. But each of those solutions was approached in a fragmented way. We have seen examples where the public safety network was altogether forgotten. 3 things distinguish a more systematic, optimised approach. First, connectivity is brought right to the front end of the infrastructure planning process. Every project that adds communications infrastructure as an afterthought risks paying more and getting less. Second, one infrastructure layer, one design and implementation, serving multiple connectivity needs. It is an architecture that utilises scarce funding more efficiently and makes it more viable to solve the connectivity challenge at scale. And third, accountability follows the asset, not the contract. There is little point in designing and building great networks if we don't know if they are performing. An owner's mindset means you are still there in 10, 15, 20 years' time, monitoring, upgrading, and answerable for how it works. So I have an ask. 2 asks, actually. 1 to industry, 1 to government. To industry. Let us stop treating in-building and underground connectivity as someone else's problem. Property and venue owners, infrastructure developers, carriers, technology providers, we all have a stake in getting this right. The holistic approach I have described is not just better for end users, it is better economics. To governments, both federal and state. The investment case for in-building connectivity is the same as the investment case for regional coverage or any other piece of critical infrastructure. The environments being built right now, the metro lines, the precincts, the energy assets, will serve Australians for 30 to 50 years. The connectivity built into them needs to be fit for that purpose. That means procurement frameworks that value long-term outcomes on both cost and quality. It means regulatory settings and spectrum decisions that support investment and infrastructure sharing. It means treating public safety communications as the non-negotiable that it is. And it means recognising that the same policy urgency that drove progress on outdoor connectivity, the programs and the funding, may need a counterpart for the indoor environment. We should be investing in the productivity of our people and our industries. Let us work towards a goal, that in 10 years' time we will never say, "Sorry, I lost you in the tunnel." Not because the technology has changed, but because someone built the infrastructure and built it to last. Connectivity in these environments has never been just about convenience. It's about the systems that keep people safe in the environments the macro network was never designed to reach, and it requires deliberate investment to get there. The next major infrastructure project is being scoped right now somewhere in this country. Whether connectivity is designed in or treated as an afterthought will shape how that connectivity works long into the future. It is time to build a better, more systematic approach to investment. It is time to make the case for the environments where most of our communications activity already happens. And it is time to solve these connectivity challenges for the next decade. Thanks very much.